This is 6 Minute English from bbclearningenglish.com.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Callum Robertson and with me today is Kate. Hello, Kate.
Hello, Callum.
Do you like going on business trips?
Well, I do quite like the idea of them, but they're definitely no holiday.
And what's the longest one you've been on?
About a week.
About a week. Well, today we're going to be finding out about what may perhaps be the longest business trip ever, but a trip that doesn't actually go anywhere. In this trip, 6 men are going to spend 500 days locked in a warehouse in Moscow. Have you heard about this?
Yes, I've heard vaguely about it. It's some kind of psychological experiment to see how long people can stay in the same place for.
That's just about right, yes. This is the story that 6 men are going to be locked in an imitation spacecraft for 500 days. And that's about the length of time it would take to travel to the planet Mars and back. And the idea is to see if people can cope with the challenge of such a journey. And the planet Mars is the subject of this week's question. Is the planet Mars A, bigger than the Earth, B, smaller than the Earth, or C, about the same size as the Earth?
Well, I'm no planetary expert, but I've always thought that Mars was bigger than the Earth. But I'm not entirely sure, so I'm going to go for C, about the same size as the Earth.
We'll find out if you're right later on. So there are 6 people in a warehouse in Moscow, pretending to go to Mars. What are they going to be doing? Here's Richard Galpin, who reports for the BBC from Moscow. He describes what they'll be doing for the first 250 days. Listen out for that information.
The pretend astronauts will spend the first 250 days carrying out routine maintenance and scientific experiments, as if they were actually on the ultra-long-haul flight to Mars.
Kate, what are the pretend astronauts going to be doing for the first 250 days?
Well, he mentioned routine maintenance, which means everyday tasks in the spaceship, and scientific experiments. These are the kind of things that astronauts would be doing if they were on the real journey.
Yes, he said they would be doing those things as if they were actually on the ultra-long-haul flight to Mars. Could you explain the phrase ultra-long-haul flight, please?
Well, a long-haul flight is a phrase we use for a long-distance journey by plane. For example, flying from London to Australia is a long-haul flight. And ultra is a prefix which means extremely. So an ultra-long-haul flight is a really long journey, which of course a trip to Mars would be.
Let's listen again.
The pretend astronauts will spend the first 250 days carrying out routine maintenance and scientific experiments, as if they were actually on the ultra-long-haul flight to Mars.
So maintenance and experiments are the tasks for the first 250 days, but what happens then? Here's Richard Galpin again.
On day 251, 3 lucky members of the crew will be able to move out into what looks like a large enclosed sandpit. It's meant to be the Martian landscape.
So, Kate, what happens after 250 days on day 251, as Richard said?
Well, 3 of the crew will be able to leave the spaceship and go to a place where there is a lot of sand, described as a sand pit. The area is supposed to simulate the surface of the planet Mars, or as it's described, the Martian landscape.
Let's listen again.
On day 251, 3 lucky members of the crew will be able to move out into what looks like a large enclosed sand pit. It's meant to be the Martian landscape.
I'd have to say that after 250 days, I think I'd be desperate to be one of those allowed out.
Oh, me too. I think I'd be going a bit crazy if I was stuck in that place for 250 days.
Yeah, so 250 days together, a little time in a sandpit for 3 of them, and then another 250 days all together again before they can come out. I don't think I could do that. Could you?
Oh no, it sounds like hell to me. I really don't think I could do it. It would be so claustrophobic and boring, and being stuck with the same people for all that amount of time.
So boredom and claustrophobia are certainly going to be an issue for the people in the experiment. Here's Richard Galpin again. What will be the result if the astronauts in this experiment do manage to get through the experience?
If all the astronauts do survive the boredom and claustrophobia of their long ordeal, it'll certainly boost hopes that a real human flight to Mars will take place in the coming decades.
What will be the result?
Well, he said that if they do survive the boredom and claustrophobia, it should boost hopes that a real flight might be possible. Boost hopes means it'll increase hopes and make it more likely.
Thanks, Kate. Let's listen again.
If all the astronauts do survive the boredom and claustrophobia of their long ordeal, it'll certainly boost hopes that a real human flight to Mars will take place in the coming decades.
Now, just time to give the answer to this week's question, which was about the size of Mars. Kate, you said...
Well, I guessed C, about the same size as the Earth.
Unfortunately, that's not the right guess. Mars is about half the size of the Earth.
Oh, really? Gosh, I got that completely wrong.
Well, you can't get it right every week.
No.
That's all for today, but do join us again for more 6 Minute English. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
That was 6 Minute English from bbclearningenglish.com.